Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Ernest Senga, and I'm a family department leader at the University Campus Fellowship International Missionary Society. So today we start the series of sexual education for children, and so the idea is not to make long presentations. We're going to shorten them. So for today, we just want to introduce why is sexual education important, and what does the Bible say about sexual education? What should parents know about sex education? So from the beginning, we know that God created man and woman, and these two, when they come together, they become one, meaning sexuality, sexual education starts from there. Secondly, as parents, we struggle so much when children are born. There are so many things that we want to teach our children, and we are very intentional about it. But when it comes to sexual education, we don't have ideas how we should give this information to children. But one thing that we should know is children are also sexual beings. They have feelings, and sometimes when you look at psychology, phallic stage, which is a sexual stage in child development, starts at the age of 3 and 6. So a child who is 3 years old starts developing sexual feelings, and if we as parents don't address this issue, children will start exploring, children will go to wrong people to ask. So we need as parents to be equipped with skills on how we can communicate to our children. So what is the first thing that parents should know? Just like education, you see, when a child is born, there are certain things that we want to teach them. Just as we teach children, even sex education, we should start with small things. You can't tell a 2-year-old child so much details about sex, because when children are growing, they are imaginative, they want to know more about life. And a 2-year-old child, if you compare them when they are 11 years, you find that there's so much development that has taken place. So the first thing as parents, we should start teaching children small things like boundaries. You should not touch anyone without permission, touching people's phones, because you see, in these phones, one thing that I've also noticed in our generation, we have given so much permission to our children to touch our phones anytime they want, and also they don't even know which boundary they should keep. Is it just your phone or any other person? And sometimes I've walked in places where you just arrive, a child will quickly ask for your phone, which is not okay. So we need to stop our children. Don't ask phones, don't sit on another person's laps, especially the girls. Consent, even you as a parent, you should be well equipped enough to ask for permission from a child if you are to touch them and all that. So when you create this place or safe place for these children, they will know from word go that there are certain things that someone should not do to me. And then the second thing is we need to educate our children about sex, because here we are just introducing this topic. So each stage has got its own content. So when children sometimes are nearing their preteen, like 9 years, 10 years, 8 years, we can also redirect our sexual education on the importance of sex and purity of sex. Why? Because at the end of the day, these children at some point they will get married and they will have sex. So there are certain things, even ourselves when we are young, we would also think like, I wish my mom told me this. I wouldn't have found myself maybe in this. I would have judged well. So we should make sure that we prepare children and we tell them sex is there, but then this is a sacred thing, honorable thing, and God honored it, and it's meant for married people. Because even in our church, we have children that are becoming pregnant or falling pregnant as teenagers, some as early as 13 years. And you see, society will judge you, but your mother, your father is a committed Christian. Why? Because as Christians, we are not taking this as a matter of importance. So we need, as Christians, to be intentional about sex education. There are very few preachers that I've seen in my life stand on the pulpit and just teach about sex to children. Normally they are teaching about sex, about adultery, about having sex before marriage. But you know what? Children in schools are on contraceptives. Children are, even as I'm talking, there's a child being abused somewhere. So we need to teach children about sex education. And then even when people are being prepared for marriage, we have found that even parents, it's very difficult to sit down and teach your children about the expectation of marriage as far as sex is concerned. So sometimes parents will hire other people to talk about it to you. But I feel like as a parent, you can also prepare your child for sex. And you can prepare a child, the expectations. You can do this, but if you started a conversation with your children early enough, they will be open enough to come and consult you on certain things. I feel like if children can consult their parents on so much matters, even sex, they would preserve a lot of things, even just marriages, because we've seen marriages that are breaking because of sex. So let us be intentional from the word go. Let us teach children about sex and the importance of sex and why they should not have sex before marriage. And we should normalize telling children to say, when you see things change in your life, when you see certain body changes, when you feel a certain way, it is normal. It is part of growth, because when children feel like that, they want to find out more, and sometimes they go and confide in their friends. And when they confide in their friends, you discover that maybe that child is already sexually active. They are already practicing sex, and instead of just telling the child, they'll say, let's go and practice. And that's why we are having all these issues of homosexuality, of abuse, and all that. So it is important that we start early. So from the Bible, Genesis 1 verse 27, God created man and woman. And in 1 Thessalonians, we read that a wife should submit. So meaning sexuality is already there. And when you read from Child Guidance, page 445, I think, it says we need to educate our children about sex. We should not hide anything. And in the next episode, we would want to explore we'll start with the development of child, and also at what stage should we teach a child about sex? What stage should we use? Sometimes as teachers, we use teaching aids. So sometimes you may not just speak and sit down, start telling a child. You may use objects and whatever just to emphasize a point. And it is very important we create this safe ground. You see, when children are abused, they want to actually confide in you, but they are scared of your reaction. That is what normally happens. A child would want, but then most of the time, as parents, we overreact. Sometimes instead of bringing a child closer, we even beat on top of that before we even address. And sometimes when they tell us maybe the person abusing them is a close relative, we don't even do anything about it. We don't want to implicate them. So children think they have no one to protect them. So as parents, please, mothers, fathers out there, please don't leave the issue of sexuality to only mothers. As fathers, we should also come. And as children, girls especially, if they learn certain things from their father, they appreciate so much. So let us educate our children. I know that at some point we are protesting as a government. No, we don't want the government to teach our children about sexual education and all that. The fact of the matter is, as teachers, we are always teaching about sexual education. You can't be a teacher and you are teaching grade 8s, grade 9s, and you have never talked about sex. Why? It's better to even trust this process also in teachers, because they are always doing this. So maybe the government did not communicate well, but I for one feel like sexual education is very important. When we take sex education seriously, this is a difficult conversation. I understand that. Even myself, it's not easy for me to start having a conversation with my daughter, with my son, but it is very important. And I don't want to start talking about sex with my children when they are teenagers, because I would have lost them. I want to talk about sex now, so that when they see any person touching them in a wrong way, they should come and approach me. They should report something that is bad. When they see their friends who are maybe practicing or involved in sex, they should be there to come and confide. And also, sex education will also help us to teach children about identity crisis that we are facing as a world, because this time we see that there's this crisis. Are you a boy? Are you a girl? And you see cartoons, books. I read a book where children, it's a book for children, but then when you read, even you as an adult, you wonder. And this the world is very intentional about changing our sexual identity, our gender identity. So if as parents, especially Christian parents, leave this in the hands of the system, we will lose our children. Because you see, the content that is out there is, you even yourself, you start questioning if you're a man or if you're a woman. Are you attracted? So if you as an adult, you're as confused as that, what about children? So let us help our children to understand sexual education, to understand gender identity, to understand sexual identity, because it is very important for ourselves and also just the church at large. So join me next week as we look at another episode on what do we teach children who are under 5 about sex. What object lessons can we use? What teaching aids can we use? And it will be an exciting moment. Thank you very much, and see you.